Hello, Ogden Baptist Church family, and anybody else who may have found this video. Greetings and welcome. I'm glad to be able to spend a few minutes with you here today as we continue in, we'll call it part 3 of our pseudo online fall revival. It's a little bit different. It's incredibly different from the way that things have been done for time out of mind here at Ogden Baptist Church, but that's okay. We're going to get through this together, and things are just they're going to be what they're going to be, but we're going to keep on going forward as we always have. In the past couple of videos, we've been talking about treasure, the treasure that is the kingdom of God, the treasure that is a life spent in pursuit of Jesus and a relationship with Him, and the joy that that brings. And I want to continue talking about that treasure here today. And on Sunday, we talked about finding the treasure and giving everything in order to obtain it. Yesterday, we talked about having to defend that treasure, but not obviously defending it from outside sources, but defending it from the things inside of us, to taking every thought captive in order that we may eliminate the things that prevent us from having a relationship with Jesus, and to strengthen those things that help our relationship with Him, defending ourselves, defending our faith, defending our ability to have a relationship with Him. Now, today, I want to talk about seeking. I want to talk about pursuing Him. And I like the word pursuit when it comes to a relationship with Jesus, because the idea of pursuit is that we are not just chasing, but we're chasing with a purpose, with a goal in mind, that we have a task that is yet to be completed. We have not yet arrived at the required status in our relationship with Him. We haven't gotten to the place where we want to be yet, and we will not be at that place until we are reunited with Him, whether He returns to come and take us home, or we go and we meet Him when we leave this world. But in any case, until we leave this world, our pursuit of Him is not yet done. We can always know Him more. We can love Him more. We can be more faithful. We can be better. We can be that perfect, or a more perfect imitation of Christ, as we have been called to do. After all, the term Christian was used to insult the first century Christians. Oh, you're just a little Christ. That's what you're trying to be. You're trying to be a little version of your Christ, and that is exactly what we are trying to be. We can't be Him, but we can be more like Him every single day, and that's where the pursuit comes in. And when you pursue anything, especially when you're trying to change, when you're trying to do things differently than you've done them in the past, it is very difficult to do. Because I think that we fall into one of two traps whenever we're trying to pursue something, when we're trying to change something. Doesn't matter if we're talking about personal fitness, your finances, or whatever it may be. You just want to stop twirling your hair because you think it makes you look foolish. I don't know what you're trying to change. But when we are pursuing, especially when we are beginning a new pursuit, or we are renewing an old pursuit, one of two traps we fall into. The first is we come out of the gates hot. We give everything we have, and we work so incredibly hard. In fact, harder than maybe we should. And in a few weeks or a few months, we get tired. We burn out. We run out of energy. The drive, the desire of the newness is no longer there, and the excitement is no longer there, and we just burn out and give up. The other side of that coin, the second pitfall that we may fall into, is we begin. And we begin in a smart way. We know that this is not something that's going to be able to be accomplished overnight. And we begin working, and we make steps, we make changes, we're putting in effort, and we're working. And then somewhere along the way, we realize that this change, or this pursuit, or whatever it is, that it is going to be something that is going to take a very, very long time. It is going to be the effort of a lifetime, and not the effort of a few short months or even years. And we become overwhelmed. We realize that this task is huge, and we feel like we simply cannot accomplish it. And again, we give up. And in either of these cases, It is our own failing, our own self-will or whatever it is that fails us. And it is in these times, especially when we are talking about pursuing God, that we cannot fail. But we can't rely upon us. You see, as we talked about yesterday, the weapons that we use are not physical weapons. They're not the weapons that the people around us, that the world uses. We can't depend on self-reliance or willpower or whatever it is. That's when we have to rely upon God, on the Holy Spirit, on those motivations, on those things to drive us, on those things that keep us on the path that we need to be on. And then the question arises, okay, if I want to pursue God, what does that look like? How do I pursue God? Because it's like in business. You've heard the phrase before, the rich get richer, and it just seems like that people with wealth are able to make even more wealth, that they can continuously increase their revenue and become wealthier and wealthier and wealthier. Think about, there are many examples of professional athletes who played in a long career in whatever sport it may be, and their total earnings from whatever that sport may have been $150 million, but then they retire and all of a sudden they have a net worth of $500 million. Well, they didn't make that money from playing a sport. They had their advertisements and things like that. But what a lot of these really successful athletes do is they take their money that they have made and then they invest it. They go out and they become part owners of a restaurant, or they buy a hotel or a grocery store. I don't know what NFL, NBA, MLB players use their money on, but they take that wealth and then they invest it into another project, and then that project becomes successful. That gives them even more money that they then turn around and they put into something else. Or maybe on a smaller scale, you have somebody who owns a small business and it's going well, and then they take part of that wealth and they reinvest it back into the business. They buy better equipment, or maybe they expand, they build a bigger building. Maybe they decide, it's working so great here, why don't we go to the next town over and open up a shop down there, and we have two businesses now. Now, I know that that's kind of how things work, but as far as practically applying that kind of thing, I have no idea how to do that. I don't think that I could run a successful business in that way. I am fairly familiar with the concept, but as far as practical application, I don't know. And so that's the question that we find here. How do I pursue God? How do I chase after Him? How do I become closer to Him? Well, we have an answer here in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 4, verse 29, where it said, "But from there you will seek the Lord your God, and you will find Him." Okay, so seeking God. How can we find Him? Well, the answer is you will find Him if you search for Him with all of your heart and all your soul. You see, this pursuit is not a half measure. It's not something that can just be done on the weekends or when you get a spare few minutes. It's not a hobby. It's a life. It's a lifestyle. I remember hearing a worship pastor at youth night at the Mississippi Coliseum, no telling how long ago. I don't remember the man's name, but I do remember that he said that worship is not an event, that worship is a lifestyle. We choose to live a life that worships God. And in the same way, I would say that the pursuit of God is not something that we do. It's not an event, it is a lifestyle. You see, that is one of the reasons that so many diets fail, because a diet is seen as something that is tacked on to what's already going on, and eventually people they grow tired of it and they fail at it. What really becomes successful are lifestyle changes. Instead of having the Diet Coke and the low calorie whatever, you then instead choose better meals that are more suited to losing weight, and it's a whole lifestyle change. And that's what we have and are supposed to do as Christians, is have a lifestyle change. Jesus is not something that is tacked on to our already existing life. Jesus is life. He needs to become our life, our sole pursuit. Anything else is secondary to the pursuit of Jesus. Because as Deuteronomy says, that we will find him if we seek with all of our heart and all of our soul, holding nothing back. Absolutely nothing is reserved in this pursuit. And so how do we find God? How do we pursue him? We pursue him with everything. This is one of those cases where when it says all, that all literally means everything. And so we hold nothing back. Not our possessions, not our time, not our effort, not our own will or wants tos or desires or whatever else it may be. We give it all to him and to his glory. And of course, because God is the kind of God that he is, he then takes it and gives it back to us and allows us to use it to honor and glorify him. See, we all so often think that seeking God, that giving everything to him means that we're going to have to change in some drastic, immeasurable way. That, well, if I completely give myself to God, if I pursue him with all of my heart and soul, then I'm going to have to sell everything I own, and I'm going to have to go and live in a mud hut in Africa, because that's what pursuing God means. And you know what? It may mean that for somebody, but not for everybody. There are people who pursue God with everything that they have, and they work a regular 9-to-5 job like everybody else. They live in their hometown that they've always lived in. They get up, they go about their day like everybody else, but the difference is that everything that they do, every decision that they make, whether it's in their personal life, in their work life, in whatever it is, that all of those decisions go to honoring God. And yes, you can honor God with your work. You can pursue him in your job as a car salesman or a TV repairman or whatever it might be. As long as you are seeking to do him honor, to honor him with what you do, and to continuously search for him, then you can do that as you are, where you are. Now, don't get me wrong. When you completely and totally sell out and give everything, give over your full heart and soul to the pursuit of God, then he may very well say, okay, it's time to pick up sticks and go to that mud hut in Africa, or somewhere across the state, or across the street, or somewhere else that is going to be uncomfortable and difficult. But that's okay. Because when we pursue him, when we give over our entire heart and soul, then he doesn't just sit back and watch and let us figure things out, because he is there in the moment with us, guiding and directing and putting us exactly where we need to be. I want to read another passage of scripture for you here from the Old Testament as well, from Psalm 27 and verses 4 and 5. It says, "One thing I have asked from the Lord, that I shall seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to behold the beauty of the Lord and to meditate in his temple." This is the psalmist. This is David. He's writing. He says, the one thing that I've asked of the Lord is that I shall seek, that he will help me to continue to seek after him. See, David, we've called him the man after God's own heart. He had probably one of the best relationships with God since Moses in the Old Testament. Since some of the prophets that came before him, God and David had a very, very close relationship. And as close as their relationship was, here we are in Psalm 27, and he's saying that I've asked God to help me continue to seek him. You see, this pursuit is not something that we have to do on our own. And there are going to be times when we are going to have to ask, you know what, God, motivate me. Help me to be faithful. Help me to want to. That's a very, very difficult part of this pursuit, is having the motivation and the will. And David says that I have asked God that he will help me to seek him, that he will help me to want him more than I already do. to seek him. To seek him. Why seek after him? So that I can dwell in the house of the Lord all of my days. He's not talking about going to the temple. The temple didn't exist during David's time. But I think what David is talking about here is to have that relationship, to dwell in his presence every day of his life. To have God with him on a daily basis and to be with him. That's what David desired more than anything else. And he asked God for that. Why? So that he could behold the beauty of the Lord and to meditate in his temple. Just to be able to be with God, to be able to just see him, to spend time with him, to view his beauty. I hear people often talk about the things that they're going to do when they get to heaven. Oh, well, I'm going to go and I'm going to find grandpa, or I'm going to find this person from the Bible or that person from the Bible, and I'm going to get all these questions answered. And I think that there may probably come a time when we have that ability. I'm kind of convinced that the first millennia or two of heaven is just going to be spent on our knees, staring slack-jawed at the beauty and amazingness that is God. That we're probably going to spend the first few thousand years just shouting his praises because we will finally see him. I mean, can you imagine? Can you just imagine going to heaven and saying, well, yeah, God's right over there, but I'm going to go talk to somebody else instead. I mean, my goodness gracious, I can't even imagine. And that's what we have to look forward to. And David is just asking, God, help me to seek you. Help me to be more completely in your will, that I may see your beauty, that I may know you more. That is what we need. We need that pursuit. We need to continue to love him more, to be closer to him. And why? Again, why? Why do we want to be closer? Why do we want to meditate with him? Why do we want to be within his will and stay in his presence at all times? Well, again, David answers in verse 5. For in the day of trouble, he will conceal me in his tabernacles. In the secret place of his tent, he will hide me. He will lift me up on a rock. The day of trouble. Now, I'm sure that David had a specific day in mind, but we also know that there are times, troubling times, coming. Now, there may be a day when Christianity is outlawed in our country, that owning a Bible will be a prison sentence, that holding a church service would be a death sentence. That day may come within our lifetimes. I pray that it doesn't. I pray that Jesus returns before it gets to that point, but I don't know. We'll just see what the day of trouble comes. But in that day, we know that no matter what happens, that God's people will be taken care of, that we will be held in his hand, that he will bring us through whatever fire and judgment and anything else that may come along. He will bring us through that. Now, we may not survive in the way that we think of survival. Bringing us through may mean welcoming us into heaven. But regardless, he is going to be there on that day of trouble. That he will conceal us, that he will hold us fast as he promised to do. But I'm not really focusing on that hopefully far off day when everything goes sideways and falls into ruination. I'm talking about the day of trouble, when temptation rises, when trouble calls, the death of a spouse or another close loved one, when the troubles pile up, when the difficulties seem to be absolutely overwhelming, when they decide to shut everything down and go back into another quarantine for another 6 months and we can't leave our houses at all. Those types of days of trouble. And we have the promise that if we pursue him, that if we stay in his presence and we try the very best that we can to build the relationship that we have with him, then on those days of catastrophe and trouble, and it doesn't matter if it's a minor trouble or if it's a huge world-ending trouble, that he will take care of us. In the secret place of his tent, he will hide me. He will conceal me in his tabernacle. That the trouble, that the danger, that it will come and it will go, but that we will remain. That no matter what happens to this world and no matter what happens to us, that God is faithful and that God will continue to watch over us and to hide us and to, as David said, lift us up on that rock, on that solid ground, the firm foundation that will not be shaken, that we can and will endure whatever comes against us. Not because from following after him, from pursuing him, that we have gained some kind of immense strength that can't be shaken, or because of our faithfulness and our goodness that we will be left alone. It's not true. It's simply not true. And if bad things only happened to bad people, how can you explain all of the tragedy that we have seen befall this world? How can you explain the Christian martyrs that are laying all across our history? Those days of trouble, whatever they are going to come and they are going to be difficult. But for those who have pursued God, those who treasure him, those days of trouble will not break us. They will not make us fail. Because even in those troubles, we stand out like beacons, like signposts pointing to God. That we stand firm in our faith. We stand firm in our conviction that Jesus is Lord and nothing can change that. So why do we pursue? Why do we defend ourselves? Why do we defend our faith? We defend that treasure. We pursue that treasure because there is nothing greater. There is nothing else that can save this world, that can save us. And the world needs to know it. The world needs to hear it. And let's face it, they're not going to get it anywhere else. It's got to be God's people. God's people who live a life in pursuit of him. Because here's the thing, and I see this at least at the gym. When I go to the gym, there are a couple of guys and a couple of ladies that you can tell that they've been going to the gym for a long time. You can see how well they are doing, and I see these people and I think, okay, they are accomplishing this. They are making themselves better. They are becoming stronger. They've got muscle definition and everything like that. They're pushing around bigger and bigger weights. It can happen. It is achievable. And that is what our pursuit does. It strengthens us. It enriches us. It brings us closer to God and making us more perfect imitations of Christ. But also, that life of pursuit, it also can inspire others. Others who are struggling, others who are wanting to pursue but don't necessarily know how or feel like maybe they can't. And they see what you are doing. And yeah, I can do that. I can chase after Jesus the same way that they have. I can improve my life. I can change my life by giving it to him. It can be done. See, this life of pursuit, it's not just about our relationship with Jesus. It's about others as well. It's about helping them along. And what you will find is as you pursue Jesus, that he is going to lead you to people. He is going to lead you to the places where you never knew you needed to be, but he did. And he's going to put you where he wants you to be, which is where you need to be, in order to have interactions and conversations with people who need to hear about him, who need to see a Christian life well lived. And when they do, they're going to want to come along, and they're going to want to run as well, and let them run with us. We have this amazing treasure that there is no comparison for it. But if we don't continue to pursue it, then we're not going to have the full value of it. It's like having that great and amazing, wonderful car. It's your dream car, the one you've always wanted. But if you leave it in the driveway and never take it out, well, you're not getting the full use out of it. You're not experiencing it to its fullest. And that is what God wants for us. Yes, we have a relationship with him because he saved us and we are Christians, but we are not getting the full use and the full benefit of that relationship if we are not seeking him with our entire heart and our entire soul. If we are not seeking after him as David did, to stay within his will, to keep in his presence day in and day out, and to just marvel at his beauty. If we are not doing those things, then really we're wasting that treasure. It's a treasure that demands to be used, and a treasure that demands to be pursued daily. He gave absolutely everything to give us this treasure. Can we give any less and still call ourselves his children? Thank you, church. I love you. Look forward to seeing you again real soon.